Hey, I'm Ben. In this walkthrough, we're building a voting dApp with two stylus contracts that talk to each other using type-safe Rust. Stylus SDK version 0.10 introduced the multi-contract workspace support, and I'm going to walk you through the entire code base, from the workspace layout to the cross-contract call all the way to the front end.
Multi-contract architectures are how real dApps get built. A token contract talks to a governance contract. A registry validates callers for another contract. Stylus SDK v0.10 introduces first-class multi-contract support. Multiple contracts in one cargo workspace, shared interfaces through normal Rust imports, type-safe cross-contract calls, and no manual ABI encoding. The project follows a cargo workspace layout. At the root, you have two key files: the cargo.toml that declares the workspace members and a stylus.toml with a workspace marker. Inside the contracts folder, each contract gets its own directory: voter-registry and polls, each with their own cargo.toml and stylus.toml. The root cargo.toml lists both contracts as workspace members and sets release optimizations: single Kojin unit, LTO, and panic abort to keep the WASM binary small. Here's where it gets interesting. The voter registry defines an iVoter registry trait marked with the public attribute. This is the cross-contract interface. It declares is regrated and voter count as read-only methods. The struct uses storage attribute and entry point with a storage map for registered voters and a storage U256 for the count. The implementation block uses the implements attribute pointing to iVoter registry. This tells the SDK that this contract fulfills that interface. Below, the trait implementation provides the actual read-only logic. This is where the magic happens. The voter registry crate declares an empty feature called contract client gen in its cargo.toml. The polls contract then imports voter registry as a dependency with that feature enabled. When contract client gen is active, the SDK completely transforms the voter registry crate. Storage fields get erased. The entry point is removed. Every public method becomes a client stub that handles ABI encoding and the cross-contract call. The voter registry type becomes a lightweight proxy that only holds an address. From the polls contract, you just import voter registry and iVoter registry like any normal Rust type. But what you get is an auto-generated client. Here is the vote function in the polls contract. First, it checks that a registry address has been set and that the poll exists and is active. Then it gets the caller's address with MSG sender. Now here's the cross-contract call. We create a new voter registry instance pointing at the registry address, and call is regidled. This looks like a normal Rust method call, but under the hood, the auto-generated client encodes the ABI, makes the cross-contract call, and decodes the result. If the voter is not registered, the function returns an error. Otherwise, it records the vote, tracking yes and no counts separately, and emits a votecast event. Deploying a multi-contract workspace takes 3 steps. First, build both contracts from the workspace root, targeting WASM32. Then deploy each contract separately with cargo stylus deploy, starting with voter registry since it has no dependencies. The critical third step is linking. You call set registry on the polls contract, passing in the voter registry address. This tells the polls contract where to send its cross-contract calls. Finally, write the deployed addresses to a .nv.local file and export the ABIs for the front end. On the front end, the cross-contract call is completely invisible. Here's a WAGMI hook. Use vote calls write contract with the polls contract address, the ABI, and the function name vote. The user passes a poll ID and whether they support it. Behind the scenes, the polls contract calls the voter registry to verify registration before recording the vote. The front end does not need to know about any of that. And here is the finished app running in the browser. Users register, create polls, and cast votes, all powered by 2 stylus contracts working together.
That's the full walkthrough. 2 contracts, 1 workspace, type-safe cross-contract calls with 0 manual ABI encoding. If you want to try it yourself, the full source code is linked below. Thanks for watching.
That is multi-contract support in Stylus SDK version 0.10, type-safe cross-contract calls with normal Rust imports. The full source code is on GitHub. Scan the QR code or follow the link to explore the repo.